Well, the potato has served as the worldwide pillar of nutrition. For thousands of years, the potato has caused many societies to survive.
You are listening to Veggie Doctor Radio, and this is episode number 180. Welcome to Veggie Doctor Radio. I am your host, Dr. Yami, board-certified pediatrician, certified lifestyle medicine physician, certified health and wellness coach, author, speaker, mother, wife, and human being. I passionately believe in the power of diet, habits, and mindset in sparking and sustaining well-being and joy in our lives. This podcast combines expert interviews and thoughtful monologues to explore plant-based nutrition, lifestyle medicine, parenting, mindset, and other exciting and fun topics. I hope that these episodes inspire you, uplift you, and equip you with the knowledge and tools to live your best life. Are you ready to get started? Let's do it. Hello, veggie lovers. Welcome back to Veggie Doctor Radio. Today on the show, we have Dr. Potato, the Dr. John McDougall, the legend. He has been on my podcast before when we were having our Sustainability Earth Month in April. I do every year a series on sustainability, and we talk about a lot of different things. And that's his passion right now, is helping protect our planet. But the reason he came on the show this time is because in the month of October, we have been talking about potatoes. So I did a solo monologue on why we should eat more potatoes. I think it was titled White Potato Friend or Foe. Gave you a little bit of information and knowledge on that. And Chef AJ heard my episode, and while all of this was happening this month, Dr. Michael Greger did a webinar on the white potato. I have not actually seen it because it was one that you have to give a donation for, and then they close it down for a while, and then it's available later. So right now it's not available to look at. But Dr. John McDougall went on with Chef AJ and did a response video, which was almost 2 hours long, that had lots of facts and research and data about why he is a potato defender. So you are in the midst of a debate here when it comes to potatoes. But Chef AJ really wanted to have Dr. McDougall comment on my podcast as well. And I am so happy to have him. What a great guy. And I just really appreciate all the work he's done to help patients. He's a passionate man. He's a very passionate man, incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly experienced, because he has been in the clinical setting. He's now retired from that part. He's not seeing patients every day on a day-to-day basis, but for several decades, he was in the office seeing patients and treating them actively himself. But he's also a brilliant man that would have time to read the literature and the studies and do some studies of his own as well. So I'm just so happy to have him. Before I talk more about Dr. McDougall, which many of you already know, so he probably doesn't need an introduction, I want to thank you for being a loyal listener. We have surpassed 500,000 downloads. Yay! So exciting. I can't remember if I said that on the last podcast episode, but we have now surpassed 500,000 downloads because of you. I couldn't be here. We wouldn't still be doing this podcast every week if it weren't for you listening. So don't forget it. You're like the most important part of this equation. Thank you. Please continue to listen. Thank you for being here every week, and continue to share my podcast. It's so easy to share. You can go to your little app wherever you listen to your podcast episodes, and there's usually a share button right there where you can actually text it to a friend or a family member, especially if you think there's somebody that needs to hear this information. I also want to remind you that the information on this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. It is not meant to replace careful evaluation and treatment. If you have concerns about you, your child's eating, nutrition, or growth, please consult a doctor. All right, so for the very small percentage of you that have never heard of Dr. John McDougall, he is an MD, a board-certified internist, author of 13 national best best-selling books, the international online McDougall newsletter, and co-founder of the 10-day Live-in McDougall program in Santa Rosa, California. He is a clinical instructor for 4 schools training young physicians and licensed in 5 states in the U.S. to practice. Other McDougall activities include seminars and health-oriented adventure vacations. Scientific results of the McDougall program are published in the Nutrition Journal and in MS and related disorders. He's a legend. He's passionate. He says it like it is. He doesn't sugarcoat anything, y'all. So I hope you're prepared. If you've never heard Dr. McDougall speak before, I hope that you really enjoy this. Also, at the end, we talked about how he is giving away a book for free. One of his older books, like I said, he has 13 national best-selling books, and you can find that on his website. His website is drmcdougall.com. That is drmcdougall.com. So drmcdougall.com, which is a wealth of information. When I first started my plant-based journey, I spent a lot of time on his website because he gives all of his knowledge away for free. Everything that he's ever said, you can find on his website, and all of his newsletters are all filed on his website, including testimonial videos and so much great information. He even has entire books on there that will take you from the first steps if you're ready to start a low-fat, plant-based, starch-based diet, because he really emphasizes the starch. That's one thing that's a little bit different. And the reason he does that is because he knows how satisfying starch is. And when we try to avoid it, sometimes that leads us to problems. That's enough of me talking about Dr. McDougall. I want you to also listen to his words. So again, thank you so much. And please let us welcome Dr. John McDougall, aka Dr. Potato. Dr. McDougall, thank you so much for joining me again on Veggie Doctor Radio. Welcome back.
Well, thank you. It's been too long. We
yes.
Should, I believe me, I would like to share with your followers as much as possible.
Can I crown you the king of potatoes?
How about Dr. Potato? Why don't you call me Dr. Potato?
I love it, Dr. Potato.
Just like one of the professors who promotes for the beef and dairy industry, I call him Dr. Lard.
Oh no, we don't want to be that one. Well, the reason I wanted to have you on today because every month I do a special podcast episode on a group, a plant group or a food group in plants. And this month it was potatoes. And it happened to coincide with Dr. Greger's webinar, which I did not get to see because I didn't hear about it until after. And then you did a response to his webinar with Chef AJ. So this was potato month and everybody's all excited about potatoes. But what I found really the most surprising and most shocking from my followers, especially on social media, when I started educating them about potatoes, which a lot of this I've learned from you, and about how potatoes are nutritious and how they're actually pretty low in calorie density compared to other starchy vegetables. And they have all these nutrients and they can sustain life. People were thanking me for giving them permission to eat potatoes. They've been avoiding potatoes for years and years and years because they've been told that potatoes are evil and bad. So I was really shocked that there's people that actually do not eat potatoes because they're afraid of potatoes. So my first question for you is, why should people embrace rather than fear the potato?
Well, the potato has served as the worldwide pillar of nutrition. For thousands of years, the potato has caused many societies to survive. For example, in Ireland, they had, prior to the potato famine, they had people eating basically 95% of their diet as potatoes. Potatoes are complete. They have all the vitamins, minerals, protein, etc., except for B12, which is a whole other issue. So they're complete. There have been people who've been raised on a potato diet alone. For example, in 1928, there was a couple. This is published by Dr. Kahn, 1928. They took a couple who were marathon runners. They were very active and housed them in a metabolic laboratory where they controlled all the food they ate. And they fed them nothing but potatoes and a few spices. And at the end of 6 months, not only were they in good health, great health, but they said they did not tire of the all potato diet. They were happy. They didn't want any change. You like potatoes for a reason. The reason you have a desire for them is they taste good. The reason they taste good is that's your food. I mean, compare that to eating a slab of raw beef. That's not your food. That's my cat's food. So anyway, if it wasn't for potatoes, I probably wouldn't be alive today, because mashed potatoes was one of the few healthy dishes my mother used to know how to make. She'd make mashed potatoes, gravy, peas and corn. Of course, the gravy was not healthy by any means, but it's still one of my favorite meals. Mary makes that all the time for us, but we use a healthy gravy. Potatoes were declared by the World Health Organization. It was declared that the year 2008 would be the International Year of the Potato. And the reason is because the World Health Organization understood the problems with food that we're going to have. We're having them now. They understood back in 2008, and that the potato was the most likely food to help us through these tough times. The potato, you can grow more calories, more protein on an acre of land than you can with rice or wheat. It requires less water. Potatoes will grow at high altitudes, at low altitudes. They'll grow in dry climates and wet climates. They're just so versatile. Mm-hmm. And of course, they're no cholesterol, low fat. As I say, they have everything you need except for B12. In fact, the potato is called the anti-scurvy vegetable because it's so loaded with vitamin C. And in that discussion that you referred to with Dr. Greger, which I encourage any of you to look up, just look up McDougall, Greger, potato, and I'm sure you'll find it. It was a discussion where Dr. Greger accused a potato. I mean, I was defending a potato, accused a potato of not having enough beta carotene, and therefore you go blind, is what he told the audience. And then he also said that a sweet potato, which has plenty of beta carotene, you'd be protein deficient. And consider the diet I recommend as a horrible, horrible diet. Anyway, the whole defense to that, if you want to see the truth about the situation, I've not gotten any response from Dr. Greger, but I did it all in the sake of education of people, to tell them the truth. Because there's so much dishonesty out there about the potato. The potato makes you fat. The potato gives you diabetes. That's nonsense. Mm-hmm. In fact, if I was going to cure somebody of type 2 diabetes, I might pick potato as one food I'd feed them alone. You could live on potatoes and water alone.
It's so interesting, and I really enjoyed watching the video that you made with Chef AJ because you really delved into the science. It was interesting to watch and interesting to think about. But the truth is, the majority of people are not interested on living only on potatoes, but there's so many people that are avoiding potatoes completely. They won't even eat one potato. So let's go into that next question is, do potatoes cause diabetes? And I'm not talking about an all potato diet. I'm talking about just eating potatoes a few times a day. Do they cause diabetes?
Absolutely not. Absolutely. In fact, in that particular lecture we talked about, you look at McDougall, Greger, potatoes on YouTube. In that particular lecture we talk about, I show you. In fact, Dr. Greger even says that it's probably the fried, the French fries and the greasy potatoes that cause the diabetes. But he still came out and said, well, maybe just a plain potato does. And so that's what I objected to. And I showed recent scientific research which addressed that particular question. Is it the potatoes or is it fried potatoes? And clearly, this international publication, one of the most respected journals in the world, said it's the fried potatoes. It's not the regular potatoes. In fact, I would use regular potatoes to treat a diabetic as far as their fundamental food because potatoes are high in carbohydrate, in other words, sugar. And sugar makes insulin work better, not worse, but better. And so if I put somebody on a high potato diet because it's high in carbohydrate, sugar, every aspect of the diabetes get better almost overnight. And the research is there. Again, I'll refer you to the lecture that I gave for all the research references. So, this kind of nonsense, unfortunately, there's some real problems here. And that is that, people are denied being trim and healthy by this kind of misinformation. And of course, the meat and dairy and egg industry and fish industry, they just clap their hands right on through. So that's one of the problems. Plus, the other thing is we're facing some very difficult times. and trying to get people to switch to a vegan diet to save the planet. And as time goes on, potatoes would be the most reliable food we'd have if food was scarce. So get the potato right. you know, the Irish people have lived on potatoes for 200 years. They ate 7 to 14 potatoes a day. They got 3,000 calories a day working hard in the field from potatoes alone. And again, all the references to what I'm talking about are in the YouTube video with McDougall, Greger, and potatoes. You can find it.
Yeah. The majority of people in the United States are not eating low-fat potatoes, though. Just like you were saying, the majority of potatoes that are consumed in this country are eaten as fried potatoes. So either French fries or potato chips and that. So I think it is confusing to people because then we're lumping all of these potatoes that we're eating and then we're saying it's the potato. Can you explain for my listeners, because I think this is still confusing. And I actually have a student working with me in the office right now, and he has also been taught in his medical training that it is sugar that causes diabetes. Can you explain why it is the fat, not the sugar, that's really causing this metabolic dysregulation?
The idea that sugar causes diabetes and fat doesn't will guarantee that all diabetics remain diabetic.
Yes.
The cure rate of type 2 diabetes is essentially 100% by definition. So all you got to do is get people to lose weight. The most effective, most natural, most healthy way to lose weight is with a diet based on starches like rice, corn, potatoes, beans, sweet potatoes, wheat, etc. That's the most effective way to cure your disease. If you're a type 1 diabetic, you prevent complications by following this kind of diet, but you'll still have to take insulin. So the experiments go way back, 1927, to Shirley Sweeney. Took his medical students, and he fed them a high sugar diet. I mean, it was candy, table sugar, honey. He took the medical students, he fed them this diet for 2 days, and he did a glucose tolerance test on them. Every one of them tested non-diabetic. Took the same students, fed them a high-fat diet, olive oil, pig fat, whatever. And they all tested diabetic within 2 days. So, we know that Brunzell at the University of Washington back in 1978, he took type 2 diabetics and he made a synthetic diet where there were 45% of the calories as simple sugar, not complex sugar, simple sugars. And he doubled it to 85% as simple sugars, and every aspect of their diabetes got better. Again, the cure rate, and nobody's going to criticize me this, at least not to my face, the cure rate for type 2 diabetes is essentially 100%.
It's amazing because so many people don't understand that. And I think also we call a lot of the ultra processed foods in our country, we call them high carb foods. But if you actually look at the ingredients list and you look at the nutrition facts, it's mostly fat. It's got lots of oil. It's got lots of fat in there to make them more palatable to people. And so even though people think they're eating a high carb diet, they're actually eating a high fat diet. And it's a lot of processed fat too.
Can I mention something that you just said that I think it deserves a little attention? People miss the fat. No, they don't. Can you get somebody to eat a strip of lard or a glass of olive oil? No, I mean, it's disgusting. You'd throw up if you did. The purpose of the oil is to get the sugar to stick to the donuts and the salt to stick to the French fries and potato chips. That's the purpose of the fat. If you can find some other way to get sugar, salt, etc. on the food without the oil, then it wouldn't be that unhealthy. It's the oil that is most toxic of all the ingredients I just mentioned. Not salt, not sugar, it's oil. You are a seeker of salt and sugar. Look at the tip of your tongue. You also have a taste bud on the tip of your tongue for potatoes, or actually starches in general. You are a starch eater, ladies and gentlemen. You are a starchitarian, a starchivore. Until you figure out that you are a starch eater, you will not be in control. You'll continue to have weight problems. You'll continue to be on a bag full of pills. You'll continue to be sick all the time. It's because you're so malnourished on the Western diet, because they have maligned starches. I mean, how terrible. And, you pick on my potato, I'll go after you big time.
I know you will. Everybody needs to watch out. Let's go back to the potato and talk about glycemic index. I discussed this on my solo podcast episode as well, but I think this continues to throw people off. And I'm wondering also if you could help me understand. Potatoes, the white potato, the baked white potato has been found to have a pretty high glycemic index.
101.
At the same time, potatoes happen to be one of the most satiating foods compared to many other foods that we typically eat. So can you explain why we shouldn't be so afraid of this glycemic index for the potato and why it can have such a high glycemic index but also be so satisfying?
Well, it's because it's your food. That's why it's so satisfying. And, you get satisfied by raising your sugar levels in your blood. I mean, that's why you eat, to raise the sugar levels in your blood. David Jenkins from the University of Toronto, a friend of mine, he developed the glycemic index in 1982. And in my conversations with him, I said, David, what does it really mean? He says, I don't know. I don't know what the importance is. Even though people have made whole books out of the idea of glycemic index. What they do is they look at people's blood sugar over a period of time, and they use as a standard white table sugar or white bread, and that would be 100%. And then what they do is they feed other foods to somebody like potatoes, etc., and they see how high the blood sugar level goes. Potatoes are like 101 or maybe 118, but Snickers bars are 68, and chocolate cookies are 38. So it's the fructose, which is one of the worst sugars you can consume as far as being fat, hurting your arteries, has a glycemic index of 20. The high glycemic index is just one characteristic of food. It doesn't tell even. It just tells a tiny bit of the story. And anybody who puts excessive weight on this is a fool. And again, if you watch that lecture, McDougall, Greger, and potatoes, you'll see a reference to some articles about glycemic index, just addressing it and trying to warn our colleagues, scientists, doctors, that this is a false god, this glycemic index stuff. Anyway, what you need to eat, and I really want to make it clear, you can live on potatoes and water alone. Okay, people have, and people might have to in the near future. But you can pick any starch.
This popped into my brain. I'm wondering what you think about these continuous glucose monitors and people who are starting to get really obsessed with having their glucose under a certain number all the time. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, when I see patients who are on the glucose pumps, I put extra effort into getting them off the pumps. The pumps are dangerous. They don't really result in any benefit as far as complications go. And as you mentioned, when you're at a pump, it controls the whole you and the whole family and everybody around you. It's what was your blood sugar now, George? Oh, how much insulin did you give yourself now, Patty? Your whole life was around this meter. Get rid of it. And what I do with type 1 diabetics, because they need insulin, as I put them on another insulin regime. Sometimes, and in fact, often I can put them on one shot a day. 1 shot a day of long-acting insulin. That's, they do extremely well. This nonsense.
But I'm just talking about non-diabetics, because now there's non-diabetics that wear the continuous glucose monitors, and they're obsessed with their sugars.
Yeah, there's a sucker born every day. Everybody's got a gimmick, and I listen to them on TV all day long. They're a gimmick. Ladies and gentlemen, it's really simple. What you need to do is you need to nourish yourself well. And that's with a starch-based diet with fruits and vegetables. You need to leave the oil out of your diet. It means olive oil, corn oil, safflower oil, and all the animals and any secretions that they may have, and any parts they may have donated. Leave them alone. So what do you eat? 90% of your diet as rice, like the Asians did until 1980. 90% of the food in China before 1980 was white rice. And they had no type 2 diabetes. They had no obesity. Now, recent reports are that about 12% of the Chinese are frankly diabetic and half are pre-diabetic. Just in the last, 30 years. 40 years. Yeah. It's all happened in my lifetime. In my lifetime, I've gone from a situation where planet Earth suffered from diseases of undernutrition. People were starving. To now where the world suffers from diseases of overnutrition. And unfortunately, not only is it killing us, but it's killing our home. And that's where you ought to really be concerned. You should have no other thought on your mind. After, of course, you get your health back following a starch-based diet. you should have no other thought in your mind but how am I going to save this place? And one of the ways you can save it is you can eat well. Switching to a vegan diet, according to the Eat Lancet Commission, will reduce your global warming gases by 80%. 80%. Can you imagine if, half the population changed? What if all the population changed? What if all the population had to change because they had no choice? That could happen.
Yeah. You'd be on the
So
road
anyway,
to
the
recovery
potato,
in more ways than one.
you should love the potato. The potato will love you back by giving you the great health you deserve. You can't. I tell you what I do. Sometimes I have a patient who has very serious heart disease or very serious cancer, and they've got a lot of various things on their mind, and they go through our whole course. We run a 12-day internet course where we take people, we do medical exams on them, take them off their drugs, all the stuff that you'd want to have done. We do it in a telemedicine course. And these people get to the end of the course, rarely, they have their mind occupied by so many other things. They'll say, Doc, I don't really think I can fix on my meals. And my answer to them is, well, go home and eat sweet potatoes and water until you figure out what else you want to eat, because you'll live just great. It'll do more for your heart, more for your cancer, not helping, you're hindering your cancer. So that's how complete a potato is. I think you should worship a potato. I bet there have been some populations that have. I'll have to look that up, see if there's populations that worship potato. Yes, you can know me. You can call me Dr. Potato.
Okay, so last question is about inflammation. So there's the group that's afraid of the potato because it's high carbohydrate or high glycemic. But then there's this other group that is afraid because they have been told that potatoes cause inflammation because they are part of the nightshade family. Well, can you talk to us more about this?
Yeah, solanine is a toxin that's produced under the skin of a potato as it spoils. And you can tell this by budding or by a green sheen under the skin of the potato. Don't eat spoiled potatoes. It's not a good idea. There's a mild to at most moderate poisoning. Nobody dies from it. You get nauseated, that's basically it. It's a distressing type of situation. So you don't want to eat green potatoes. So the idea that potatoes cause inflammation, sure, if you're going to eat poisonous potatoes, not fresh potatoes. There's nothing in potatoes that causes inflammation. As a matter of fact, they're anti-inflammatory. And there's an article on my website called Smoke and Mirrors of the Low-Carb Diets. And it talks about all the scientific studies that have been dealing with inflammation. And clearly the studies come out and they say eating meat, eating oils, eating dairy products cause inflammation, and that all the studies on vegetables don't cause inflammation. Let me tell you what causes inflammation. It's injury. Like, for example, if you smoke cigarettes, the cigarette smoke injures your lungs. They become inflamed. So what injures the heart, the muscles, the bones, etc.? What is injuring that? It's the food. It's the allergic reactions to the food. It's the LDL cholesterol. It's the oxidants. All these things in the food are injuring the tissues, and the response is inflammation. If I burn my hand, what happens is the response is inflammation. The body only responds in one way. It's inflammation. Red, swelling, heat, and pain. That's it. So when somebody says such and such is caused by inflammation, you say, what caused the inflammation? Because you have to have injury to have inflammation. Did you follow what I'm saying? Yes. Okay, so don't give me this nonsense about inflammation causes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. No. One step back. It's the fork and spoon that's injuring the tissues, and the response of the tissues is inflammation.
Yes.
I tell you,
unless a person specifically has an allergy to that food, then they should not think of potatoes as a generally inflammatory food.
Yeah, it's really rare people have allergies to potatoes. In fact, on an elimination diet I use for really tough cases of rheumatoid arthritis and ulcerative colitis, I use the elimination diet. It's based on sweet potatoes and brown rice. That's basically it. Yeah. Not even white potatoes. Sweet potatoes are such a phenomenal food. Do you know that in Papua New Guinea, the Highlanders, their diet is 92% from sweet potatoes, the roots and leaves. They're warriors, they're athletes. 92% of their food comes from sweet potatoes. So again, if you're just desperate out there, just like Chef AJ, you mentioned Chef AJ. You know, when I finally got the message across to her that potatoes were her friend, it's been, 12 years. She has not looked back. She's never had a problem with weight since. And she eats tons of potatoes. Eat potatoes. The Irish did for 200 years. Man, do you know that the population of Ireland doubled in 40 years when the potato was introduced to Europe?
Wow.
Hey, they used to say that, well, I don't know, this may be a little, never mind, I won't say it. But
now we need to know. Now we need to know, Dr. McDougall.
You know, they used to say that girls in Ireland who were particularly pretty were potato eaters. You know.
So yeah, another reason why we shouldn't fear the potato.
Sexist comment these days.
It's going to be one of our beauty habits, eating more potatoes.
Well, you know that's what the Irish should say, is that there's a lady who really ate a lot of potatoes because it was the glow of her skin from the potatoes. Yeah. Hey, folks, figure it out. The advice that you're getting now is failing you. Okay, one thing you won't do is you won't come back to me and you'll say, I followed your advice and it failed me. You may come back and say, I couldn't follow your advice, it was too hard. Mm-hmm. I understand that, but we'll keep working with you. And I think then I would send you to our 12-day telemedicine, telehealth program that we run every month. And we'll fix you, we'll brainwash you, we'll take good care of you, we'll take you off your drugs. Yes, we will. So
that's awesome. Well, yeah. Dr. McDougall, this is everything that you're saying is not new. You have been preaching this for so many years. Your website is amazing. All of your newsletters are available on your website going decades back. They are gold mines. I don't know how you were able to invest so much time writing those newsletters, but there's also lots of videos and testimonials. But tell us, when is your next 12-day program?
It's in about 7 days. I think it's November 7th.
Next week. Great.
Yeah. The other thing, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, October is, and it's an event that's sponsored by a drug company and the American Cancer Society. Anyway, in honor of this, you know, I've done many things in the past. It's been since 1985. In honor of this, I'm giving out a book for free, no gimmicks, that I wrote in 1985, the same year that the Breast Cancer Awareness Month was set up, 1985. It's 37 years old, but folks, the truth don't change. And there's nothing I would update in this book. I mean, I would add some additional things that happened in the last 37 years, no doubt about it, but the basic truths are the same. Anyway, you can have this book for free. Just go to my website. It's McDougall's Medicine, A Challenging Second Opinion. I like that title, McDougall's Medicine, A Challenging Second Opinion. Anyway, take advantage of our website. You'll be amazed at what is free there.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely be linking it on the show notes. Hopefully people will take advantage of receiving this free gift. And Dr. McDougall, I appreciate you so much for everything. I have so much gratitude. Thank you for coming on my podcast to glorify the potato.
It's always fun, and I love the subject. Potatoes are my favorite. In fact, I think I'll ask Mary if we can have potatoes tonight.
It sounds delicious.
All right.
Well, I hope that you and Mary have a very plantastic day. Hey, veggie lover. I hope that you loved today's episode. Will you take a second and do me a huge favor? Please subscribe to my podcast so that you never miss an episode. You're the reason I'm here, and I want to share it all with you. Thank you for listening and have a plantastic day.